Even celebrities started to subtly criticize Jim, with some unfollowing him on social media and others liking posts that criticized him. The fallout was spreading quickly, and it appeared as though Jim Jones was rapidly becoming a pariah in his own industry. But instead of calming the storm, comments poured in within minutes. One fan wrote, "This isn't it, Jim. Your son is hurting, and you post this." Another fan said, "So disappointed in you. We thought you were different." Insiders speculated that the situation was even more volatile behind the scenes. They said that Jim's son had begun talking to a therapist following the incident, encouraged by his mother and a close family friend. They said that those around him were encouraging him to stay strong and take charge of the story, helping him realize that he doesn't have to live in his father's shadow any longer. One source said that could be the beginning of him finding his own voice. Rumors circulated that Jim's son was doing a candid interview about his entire upbringing, not just the fight. This idea sent shockwaves through the fan base, and if he did decide to speak out, it could ruin Jim's reputation forever. But some admirers thought it was long overdue. One fan wrote, "He's been silent for too long. He deserves to be heard." Jim reportedly became more agitated as these rumors spread. According to those close to him, he felt betrayed by everyone, not just his son. He felt as though the world had turned against him. One former friend wrote, "It seems like everyone has forgotten all the good he's done. All they care about now is this one moment." Jim's inner circle started shrinking fast. People he'd known for years were suddenly distancing themselves, afraid of getting caught in the crossfire. Meanwhile, Chrissy was doing everything she could to mediate the situation. She purportedly reached out to Jim's son multiple times, asking if he'd be open to sitting down and having a private conversation. Though he didn't respond right away, sources say he didn't completely shut the door either. "He's hurt, but he still loves his dad," one insider explained. "It's complicated. It always is with family." Nevertheless, Jim was unquestionably damaged. A planned appearance at a major music festival was discreetly canceled, and brands that had collaborated with him started to distance themselves out of concern for the negative reaction. One brand spokesperson stated, "We support artists, but we also have a responsibility to stand against violence, no matter who it involves." This statement didn't name Jim directly, but everyone knew who it was about. In the midst of this chaos, more unexpected twists began to unfold. A former nanny who worked for the family when Jim's son was a child came forward in an emotional TikTok video. She didn't go into specifics, but said she wasn't surprised by what happened. "I saw things. I hope he finds healing from the things that broke my heart," she said in a sorrowful whisper. After her video went viral overnight, the narrative abruptly changed, from indignation to empathy, to anger, to worry. People started to speculate about whether this was a single violent incident or the culmination of years of unresolved trauma. Whether Jim was a villain or just a broken man who never dealt with his own problems. Whether his son was lashing out or finally standing up for himself after years of suffering. Fans were feeling uncomfortable as the lines between attacker and victim began to blur. But some clung to hope. One well-liked comment thread beneath a viral video stated, "Maybe this is rock bottom, and maybe they can rebuild from here. Families fight, it's ugly, but they can still find a way back." As emotions continued to spiral and public opinion swung wildly back and forth, Jim and his son remained publicly silent. No interviews, no live streams, no statements. Others weren't so forgiving, stating that they were done supporting Jim for good. The story was far from over, though, because just as things seemed to be coming to a head, an unexpected visitor, someone no one had seen in years, arrived at Jim's house late one evening. The city was sleeping and the house was quiet, but something about the knock felt heavy and urgent. Jim, who had been sitting in silence in the living room, nursing a drink and scrolling through the endless wave of comments about him online, froze for a moment. But he didn't move. He thought it might be his imagination, but then he heard 3 slow, deliberate knocks, and he got up, not knowing who would be there at this hour. His breath caught when he opened the door and saw his estranged brother, whom fans hadn't seen or heard from in years. He wasn't just a sibling, he was Jim's best friend and his right hand, until something happened that tore them apart. No one knew exactly what caused their fallout. Some said it was pride, others said it was money. But whatever it was, Jim stared at him in shock. "Why are you in this place?" Jim asked. "I heard what happened," he continued calmly. "And before you ruin your whole life, I thought I'd remind you who you used to be." His brother entered the house without waiting for an invitation. Jim closed the door and spun around, obviously agitated. "A lecture is not necessary for me." His brother responded, "No, but you need someone who isn't afraid of telling you the truth." The tension in the room was high. These were two men who were related by blood, but who had harbored years of animosity. They sat across from one another, for a while without speaking, and then gradually the conversation started to expose long-buried layers. They discussed their early years, their father, and Jim's constant pressure to be the head of the household. His brother reminded him of how they used to dream of success together, before fame turned everything sour. "You were never good at admitting when you were wrong," his brother said. "But this is your chance to fix it before it's too late." Jim bit his lip and looked away. "You don't know the full story." "Maybe not," his brother said. "But I know pain when I see it. And that boy's hurting." "You think I can't see it?" "He's scared of you, Jim. And whether you like it or not, that's on you." Those words struck deep, and Jim remained silent for a while, as if he was trying to process the reality of what he'd become in his son's eyes. Meanwhile, outside the house, paparazzi had set up camp, and the front of Jim's house now looked like a war zone, with cameras flashing, voices shouting, and lenses searching for any indication of movement. When fans on the internet saw a blurry picture of the unknown visitor at Jim's door, rumors began to circulate once more. Theories about the man's identity and activities ranged from a long-lost cousin to a secret brother to even an undercover therapist sent by the family. As rumors grew, it was said that Jim's son was still hiding and had been living with his mother, refusing to answer any of Jim's calls. However, what shocked fans the most was when he shared his brief but impactful message on his private Instagram account, "I'm not okay, but I will be." Those 6 words were sufficient to send shockwaves over social media. Thousands of people reposted it with love and support as comments poured in with things like, "We believe in you, stay strong." Rapper who had worked with Jim wrote, "Royalty isn't about silence, it's about accountability." Celebrities started taking sides. Others stood up for Jim, arguing that the public should stop disparaging Black fathers and that they were unaware of the whole situation. The discussion was all over the T podcast and Clubhouse. In the midst of all of this, a new video, clearly shot on someone's phone, showed a heated moment between Jim and his son during a family barbecue last year. The video showed Jim yelling and slamming a glass on the table while his son appeared visibly shaken. There was no physical contact, but the energy was explosive. Fans analyzed every second of the clip. Some called it emotional abuse, while others said it was a family argument that had gotten out of hand. In any case, it further widened the gulf. Back at Jim's house, his brother was still trying to convince him. "You have a choice right now," he said. Jim stroked his temples. "You think I don't feel like a failure? You think I wanted this? Then show it," his brother replied forcefully. "Not to me, to him." Jim was sitting by himself as morning approached after his brother had left, watching the sunrise. His phone was buzzing constantly, alerting him to missed calls, mentions, and news, but he chose to ignore them all and open the one message that really mattered to him, a picture of his toddler kid grinning while eating chocolate. The next day, Jim made a rare move. Instead of tweeting, posting on Instagram, or publicly venting, he quietly contacted a family counselor who specializes in crisis management and scheduled an emergency session. It was a small but necessary step, and although the internet was unaware of it at the time, something had changed. His son was going through his own emotional journey, and friends close to him said he had been journaling every day, trying to process the pain, the betrayal, and the confusion. He had begun voice memos. He said something that stopped fans in their tracks. "I never hated him. I just wanted him to see me." Those words struck a chord with everyone watching the saga unfold. Suddenly, it wasn't just about a fight. It wasn't just about drama. It was about a broken relationship between a father and a son. Talking out loud to himself, sometimes crying, sometimes screaming, it was like therapy. As more details of the story emerged, the public's anger started to change into concern. Memes and canceled posts started to disappear, to be replaced by messages of healing and hope. Influencers started discussing toxic masculinity, generational trauma, and the need for Black families to heal in safe spaces. What started as a scandal was evolving into a movement. But not everyone was prepared to forgive. Critics pointed out that true accountability required more than just silence or therapy sessions. They said Jim hadn't done enough. Nevertheless, the question remained. Just as fans thought the dust was starting to settle, another unexpected twist emerged. This time involving a secret recording that threatened to end any hope of peace forever. The secret recording, which surfaced only 2 days after Jim scheduled, that emergency counseling session was an audio clip barely 2 minutes long, but the content was explosive enough to reignite the chaos. Fans first heard it on a celebrity gossip page that had developed a reputation for leaking real-time drama. The caption simply read, "You won't believe what Jim Jones said behind closed doors. Listen now. You, especially when you're trying to do better." However, the damage was done. People believed what they wanted to believe, and Jim's son was still vulnerable when he saw the clickbait. Sources close to him said he broke down when he heard it. He was just beginning to trust again. Jim's partner posted a lengthy message on her story addressing the drama without naming names, saying, "Healing isn't pretty. Families fall apart, but they can also come back together. Stop pouring gasoline on a fire you didn't start." The post went viral on its own, with fans divided between those who praised her strength and those who accused her of enabling Jim. Emotions were running high everywhere, and even some of Jim's closest industry friends started to distance themselves. A former collaborator publicly unfollowed Jim and tweeted, "Protect Black sons." Feeling the weight of it all, Jim made the unthinkable decision to speak directly to his son, offering to meet. The son didn't reply for a few days, and then, a week later, the media started reporting that the silence meant Jim had been rejected. Fans interpreted it as a sign that reconciliation was impossible. But something was changing behind the scenes. The son had been talking to his therapist every day, trying to make sense of what he felt. He wanted to scream, fight, cry, but more than anything, he wanted clarity. It wasn't clear to him whether he wanted to forgive, but he needed answers. He finally consented to meet, but only if a professional mediator led the session. The meeting took place in an undisclosed location, away from the city and away from flashing lights. For the first 10 minutes, no one spoke. Jim appeared older than usual, tired and worn out. His son appeared guarded, with his arms crossed and his eyes sharp. The mediator started slowly, encouraging both of them to speak without interruption. Jim said, "I messed up plainly. I let my pride get in the way of being your father. I thought being tough was love. I thought protecting you meant controlling you. I didn't know how to be gentle. I didn't know how to show you that I cared without screaming." His breathing changed, slower, heavier. "I was afraid of becoming the man who raised me," Jim went on, "and in trying not to become him, I became him." Those words hit hard. Finally, his son said, "I didn't need you to be perfect. Just show up. Not with rules, not with lectures, just show up." The session lasted more than 2 hours, during which there were tears, apologies, silence, and, for the first time, in what seemed like years, understanding. When it was over, nobody hugged, nobody posed for photos. But when they left the room, something fundamental had changed. They weren't fixed, but they were finally facing the same direction. The meeting's details weren't immediately made public. It was kept quiet and sacred. But eventually, word got out. Fans saw that Jim and his son had shared the same quote on their Instagram stories. "Healing isn't loud, it's quiet, slow, and real." That was all it took for the internet to light up again. People started praising the maturity required to have that meeting. Mental health advocates used the story to spark discussions. Podcasts devoted whole episodes to the story's development. Some even called it the most genuine thing Jim had ever done. However, just as the plot was about to take a turn for the better, a source close to the family revealed a startling revelation. Apparently, a legal document had been filed behind the scenes, not over a child, but over a joint business venture, that Jim and his son had been developing covertly for more than a year. The fight wasn't just personal, it was also professional. Fans were shocked, unaware that the father and son had been working on a media company aimed at empowering young voices. According to the source, the plan had been set in motion quietly, but once their relationship soured, so did the deal. Now the question was whether they could still do business together after everything that happened. Some fans said yes, others weren't so sure. Suddenly, the drama took a different turn, because this wasn't just about forgiveness. It was about legacy, trust, money, influence, and whether two wounded men could rebuild something greater than their pain. However, before any answers could be given, another unexpected figure returned. The unexpected figure was none other than Freddie, Jim's estranged older brother, who had lived in the shadows of Jim's fame for years, choosing a life away from the cameras and chaos. However, Freddie had returned, and according to several sources, he wasn't just visiting. He had a purpose. Freddie had been watching the family's drama unfold from a distance. He had heard the leaked audio, seen the fight, and understood the depth of the scars between Jim and his son. However, no one knew that Freddie held the piece that could make a difference. Freddie had been the silent partner when Jim and his son first started their media company. He had helped secure funding from private investors, wrote the original mission statement, and was left holding the contracts, quietly, legally, and without drama, when things fell apart. Now that the public was aware of the business, Freddie saw an opportunity to step forward, not to take control, but to force the two men to finish what they started. He asked for a meeting with both of them. Jim was initially hesitant because his relationship with Freddie wasn't smooth. There were unresolved childhood rivalries, old betrayals, and years of silence. Surprisingly, Jim's son accepted it, saying, "Perhaps we should stop acting as though the past never happened." Freddie didn't waste time. "I've got something to show you both," he said, taking out a folder that contained original documents proving all three of them had been listed as equal partners in the company. That comment alone pushed Jim to say, yes. They met in a private location once again. There were no cameras or press, just the three men seated around a table filled with old paperwork, memories, and decades of pain. Jim leaned back and stared at the ceiling, seemingly trying to calm his own inner storm. "You've both been acting like enemies," he continued. "It's time to decide. Do you want to fix the past or burn the future?" His son looked perplexed. "I didn't know you were involved," he said to Freddie. "You were never around." Freddie nodded. "I wasn't, and I regret that. But perhaps this is my chance to be present. Not as your uncle or Jim's brother, but as someone who thinks you two are capable of creating something real." The meeting lasted for hours. For the first time, Jim and his son began discussing issues not as rivals, but as partners. They came up with new ideas for the business, and even thought about making a documentary about their journey. Not for publicity, but to help others who might be suffering in silence in broken families. Jim had stopped posting on social media. He had no new music, no interviews. It seemed as though he had